So let's talk about the best practices for query keys. As I mentioned earlier, always use arrays and not a string. Even if you have one value for the query key, for example, users, to-dos, always use it as an array. So create an array with only one element and put this string as the first element of the array. And the second important thing is always keep the keys serializable. So use primitives like a string, numbers, and avoid complex data structures like functions and objects because they are not serializable. And also use nested key for scoping. So for example, if we have one API which returns active users and the other API which returns inactive users, we can have a query key of an array which the first element is user and the second element is active to represent fetching of the active users. And this nested key help other developers to understand the code easier, and it is also gives us better scoping. And the next point is you can use these query keys in query invalidation. So, and always make sure that you are only invalidating that piece of the cache which is related to the part of the implementation that you are doing. So here you will see that I have one line of code, query key that invalidate queries. And with this line of code, I am asking TanStack Query to invalidate the data that it has previously cached and call the API and fetch the API again. And here I am passing a key which is an array, and the first element is user and the second element is user ID. So, and here I am invalidating only one object. So it is because the API which is related to this call will returns the details of one user. If I pass, for example, invalidate queries and I pass the query key as users, then I am invalidating all of the users, which is completely unnecessary. So always use the keys in query invalidation in a proper way that you invalidate only that piece of the data which you don't need it anymore. And the last point is actually we can also, one of the best practices is to parameterize keys for filtering and pagination. For example, as you can see in the example, I have a query key and the first element is an string which is the post, and but the API which is related to this post always has pagination and also provides some filtering. So in order to cache this properly, I'm also passing the second part as an object for page and filter. So I'm creating a complex of array which the first element is post and the second element is an object of the page and filter. But in this example, the page is just a number and filter is an string. So remember the second best practice that I said, use primitive types for the like numbers and a string. And here in this example, they are also primitive. And with this, I am making sure that I am caching, for example, the second page of the post. So if we have a user which goes to the second page and we using TanStack query for fetching this data, now we have the second page. And the key that we have defined here has the post, and also the page is part of the query key. So now the TanStack query knows that he has the post for the second page. So if user goes back to the first page and then returns to the second page, then it uses the cache data and it can prevent unnecessary API calls.